Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Before we dive into the episode, I am so excited to share with you that my brand new online course, Cashed Up Creatives, is officially out now. Now, this course is for my artists with neurospicy brains, my bi-weekly paycheck cuties who just don't want a budget, or anyone who wants to get out of that paycheck to paycheck cycle and finally experience financial wellness. This course is for you. It's gonna help you get 3 months ahead on bills. It's gonna help you pay off debt while you still take vacations. It's gonna help you manage your fluctuating or consistent income with ease. You're gonna be able to confidently talk to your parents or partner about your money decisions. You're gonna be able to open a retirement account and invest your first or next $500. You're always gonna have surplus in your bank account, and it's gonna teach you how to ditch your scarcity mindset so you can feel abundant with money. Now, this is a self-study course, meaning that when you make your one-time payment of $247, you have immediate access to the course content for life. And on top of lifetime access, the best part about what I'm sharing with you today is that for the rest of 2025, I am going to be hosting live monthly office hours for anyone who has joined the course. Totally for free, included with the price that you pay for the course itself. I, of course, recommend joining as soon as possible because the earlier you join, the more of those monthly office hours calls that you are going to get to attend. I cannot wait to see you inside and to help you get cashed up. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Girl math, girl math, girl math. I have been wanting to do an episode on girl math for so long, and it is finally happening. So today, we're going to talk about the dark side of girl math, the roots of girl math, and we're going to talk about why girl math is actually a symptom of you not fully loving how you spend money, right? And fully having developed the skill of spending. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how to actually spend money without guilt. Spend money on frivolous shit that you love without guilt, without needing the weird justification of girl math, okay? So girl math, for those of you who don't know, girl math is this thing, this trend that took off where it's a justification of spending decisions to make them feel more logical, like rationalizing purchases so they feel more financially sound, okay? So for example, cash in Venmo feeling like free money, like not real money, so you can spend it on whatever. Is something like an expensive bag is virtually free if you wear it enough times to make the cost per wear $0. So if the purse costs $200, if you wear it 200 times, the cost per wear is $1, which is virtually nothing, which means the bag is free, right? That's an example of girl math. Paying for a vacation 6 months in advance. So that means that when the vacation comes, the vacation's free because you've already paid for it, meaning you can spend money on a whole bunch of new vacation outfits because the vacation was free. So now you have money to spend. Or returning something, right? Or choosing not to buy something, meaning you've earned money, which means you can then go buy whatever you want with that earned money. Okay, these are all examples of girl math. I'm sure you all have heard or seen this trend on TikTok, on Instagram, etc. The reason that this is so prevalent, and the reason why I'm actually really happy that this became a trend, is because of behavioral finances. There are so many financial books, personal finance advice, a lot of the money conversations leave out the feelings part, the mindset part, the human behavior part of money. This is what we as humans do. We do crazy things in our brain to justify things, or we feel guilty, or we feel shame, or we feel excited, but then we feel shame about feeling excited about certain things. And so we have to do all of this stuff in our brain to make it make sense, right? There's so much more to money than just numbers, which is what girl math shows us. Because at the end of the day, we can make the math do whatever we want. Girl math reminds me of those timeshare sales events pitches where it's like, you'll get a free vacation if you come listen to this 1-hour pitch for our vacation property. Like, they don't even call it a timeshare, but it is a timeshare. And so you go. I actually did one of these. I never did a podcast on it. I went to one of these to be able to experience it, to then do a podcast on it, and I never did the podcast episode on it. But basically, when you go to one of these events or seminars or whatever, the people are there to sell you into buying a timeshare, which is a notoriously poor way to spend your money. Okay. It makes more sense just to buy the vacations you want to go on. So they will do all of this math to, one, confuse you, but then two, they make the math make it say something that is enticing to you, where they do math equations to tell you a very specific story. And if you're not aware of all the other math that surrounds it, or like other things that aren't just focused on selling you a timeshare, it's very clear that this math is not the full story. But if you're only focusing on the one math equation they're showing you, it says, buy this timeshare, you'd be dumb if you didn't. This is what girl math reminds me of. It's taking one very specific equation to push you into buying something for a myriad of reasons, or justify buying something for a myriad of reasons. This is timeshare math. That's what girl math is. Girl math is timeshare math. These timeshare people have been doing girl math since the dawn of time to get people to buy timeshares, okay? Behavioral finances. This is the psychology behind money. Money is not just numbers. And this is why last week when we were talking about the buy now, pay later platforms, this is why they're so effective for companies, is because of the psychology of money, because of behavioral finances. This is why timeshare companies keep doing these seminars and point you towards very specific types of math to tell you it would be dumb to not get a timeshare. This is why they still thrive. This is why they're able to keep selling timeshares, even though, again, they're a notoriously poor way to spend your money. This is the psychology behind money. Other examples of this is you may or may not have heard of the sunk cost fallacy. I was actually just talking to a client about this, the sunk cost fallacy, where you put a lot of money into something, and even if it's no longer what you want, it's losing you money. In her example, she had a couple of individual stocks that she had invested money in on top of her index funds, and she didn't want to sell them because of this sunk cost fallacy of like, but I've already left the money in for so long. Do I actually want to move it, etc. The sunk cost fallacy is continuing to put time and energy into something that's no longer serving you just because you've already put time and energy and resources into it. You'll hear this talked about a lot when it comes to relationships, right? People staying in relationships longer than they actually want to or realize they should because of the sunk cost fallacy. Well, I've spent this many years, I've put this much energy into it, etc. We do this with money all of the time. We do this with purchases, right? So when we think about like the cost per wear, you spend a lot of money on something and you feel really bad about it. But instead of giving it away or selling it, getting rid of it because you don't like it, you have to wear this shitty pair of pants that makes you feel so not good about yourself, but you spent $200 on these pants. So you bet your ass you're going to wear them 200 times so you can get that cost per wear down to $1. Meanwhile, your confidence is going down because you don't look good in the pants. You hate the pants. They're a really ugly green color, right? Who knows? That's the sunk cost fallacy. Now, loss aversion is another piece of money psychology, which is we feel the pain of losing money so strongly and even more strongly than we feel the joy of receiving money. Okay? So loss aversion, this is where a lot of girl math hinges, where it's like if we can tell our brain we are parting with as few dollars as possible, we can get behind spending our money. Okay. And so this is where like getting the cost per wear down. This is where the Venmo and the Cash App and physical cash money, we tell ourselves that's free money so we can spend it how we want and not feel like we're actually parting with our dollars. This is why I see a lot of people keep balances in their Venmo, in their PayPal, in their Cash App, in wherever, or you buy things on Amazon And then when you return them, you refund it to your Amazon balance, not your actual credit card, because you want the Amazon balance to feel like free money because it's already been spent and now you just have free money. We're trying to do the loss aversion thing. We're trying to make it as least painful, the least painful way as possible to spend money, which is to not feel like you're spending money. But like we talked about in last week's episode, you want to feel when you spend money. And if you don't feel good, let's not try and like delude yourself and like timeshare math your way into feeling good about spending. Let's get to the root about why you don't feel good about spending money on that thing. And it's one of two reasons. The first reason is that you don't actually want to spend money on that thing. You know it's not aligned. You know it's not what your like future self would want. You know that it's just a coping thing or it's a blackout thing, right? So deep down, you know it's not what you actually want, but you have to justify your way into it. Or two, you feel guilt because of conditioning, because of money narratives. You're not used to indulging in yourself and saying, I want it, and then allowing yourself to have it. So it might be a mindset thing to work through so that you can actually spend guilt-free without girl math. Or it might be a thing where it's actually pointing you towards a thing you don't actually want to spend money on, which then it's good to feel the aversion to spending money because that's what you actually want. You don't actually want to spend money. And then if you feel the aversion to spending money because of a mindset issue, it's going to point you towards the mindset issue to work on. So then you don't have to feel guilty about spending in the future. Okay. So ladies, my ladies, I mean, this goes for we all have conditioning. We all have mindset issues, but girl math specifically targeted towards women. Okay. It is all ha-ha on the surface. It's all cute and fun and trendy on the surface. But deep down, it is dangerous. It is insidious. It's got patriarchal roots. So I don't mean to like remove the ha-ha from the girl math, but y'all, we're going to get to the roots of it and like where it came from and why it is as prevalent as it is. But this trend gives me the same vibe as all of those trends that I see, and it's mainly on Instagram. I see it a little bit on TikTok, but it's all of these women who are participating in these trends of like, haha, gotta hide my packages from my husband. Or like I saw one recently where like a woman walked in with her Lego set to show her partner, and her partner was on the computer and it was like, walking in to show my partner the new Lego set, but they're working on the budget and they're about to ask me about the $300 Target charge, and she like walks out of the room. Or yeah, just like there's so many trends about the man having financial rules and the woman breaking them with her spending habits and overspending and buying too much and being the spender in the relationship. It's a very heteronormative, gender stereotype trope that a lot of us fall into when we are trying to reclaim what society has been like shoving down our throats and telling us we're bad for. So I also want to say, like, we'll get to this in a second, but there's a reclaiming here when these trends come about. But I want us to be very aware of the roots of these trends. And like, I can't laugh and giggle about men or about women hiding their packages from their husband so that their husband doesn't reprimand them about their spending, because that is terrifying, right? That's financial secrets. That's the man holding the purse strings and telling the woman what to do with her money. Like, that's not funny to me. I can't laugh and joke about that, right? And girl math, I think, is a little lighter, a little funnier, but it still has those deeper roots, right? Those patriarchal roots where, let's just get into it, okay? Because listen, I love a meme. I love a trend. This is not me saying like, we can't have fun on the internet, right? I love a giggle through the pain moment. I love it. I love a reclaiming the shit that they told us we were bad for, right? I do love that men were like, hey, women, you're spenders, do better. And we're like, haha, we're going to make all these trends about it. And we're going to become influencers and actually make a full-time income off of our shopping. Like, sure, right? Reclaim it. But are we aware of where it came from? And are we giggling for the right reasons? Are we aware of why we're giggling? But it is insanely important that we are so conscious and intentional about how we speak to ourselves about money. What is going on in our own brains when we are not scrolling Instagram, when we are sitting with our bank accounts, and when we are spending and making decisions about our money. It is insanely important that we are consciously aware and choosing what's going through our brain. And girl math is usually not the healthiest way to go about these spending decisions, to go about thinking about our money. I'm going to talk about why. But this is why we're having this episode. We do need to be able to giggle through the pain, right? I have been coping with memes recently. I'm sure so many of us have, with what is going on in our fucking country right now, okay? So let's be aware of that, because part of girl math is about coping with the cost of living crisis, right? Where everything has just gotten so expensive. And also societal conditioning towards women, right? Like I said, like we're reclaiming something that's been foisted upon us. But we need to consciously choose how we speak to ourselves moving forward and when we are alone with our bank accounts. So girl math, it's gendered for a reason. So like, let's get to the roots of what girl math is. It's gendered for a dark reason, because marketing towards women is drastically different than marketing towards men. I was on the subway and I saw two different sets of ads from the same jewelry company. One set of ads was targeted towards women and one set of ads was targeted towards men. The set that was targeted towards women, and they were both like very similar except for like the text over top of them. The one towards women was like 20 to 30% off, like you deserve a treat, like something about the sale price and you deserve it. And then the one towards men was because she deserves something delicious, because you want to show her you can afford it, or like something like that. And seeing that directly side by side was insane. We know that this is how marketing is, that marketing towards women is about your spending habits, buy it on sale, be responsible, be frugal. And marketing towards men is like, spend your money, go make more money, you're the provider, etc. So we've got these two different types of marketing. So girl math has come out of women having to prove that we are making responsible financial decisions. It comes from that conditioning about having to justify every single time we want to spend our dollars. And do you know where this justification energy comes from? It's the root female trauma of not having our own money for so fucking long, not being able to have our own lines of credit, not being able to have our own bank accounts, not being able to make our own money, that we were given money by men, right? Fathers, husbands, partners, right? That we then were spending, but it wasn't our money. So we had to like prove that we weren't being frivolous. We had to prove it was good for the household. We had to prove that it was smart. That's where that justification energy comes from. Women's financial choices are scrutinized so much more than men's financial choices. Men will write a fucking memoir about all the shitty financial choices and investments that they made that made them the man they are today. And like, that man is not even making that great of financial decisions now. They will write fucking memoirs about it. But women, we have to prove over and over and over and over that we are good with money, that we have reasons for spending money, that we are not being frivolous, right? Because you choosing to spend money on pumpkin spice lattes and you choosing to spend money on your Chappell Roan concert is going to be scrutinized so much more than a man buying his fucking VR goggles, than a man making a shitty business investment because his friend told him that he needs to invest in this specific like type of crypto, what the fuck ever. Right? Women are scrutinized so much more. So of course, we feel like we need to girl math at every corner because we're trying to justify it. Also, women, we are conditioned to focus more on spending than we are on earning. And it's because it's been historically harder for us to earn than it has been for men, right? And to build wealth than it has been for men. Now, I'm talking overarchingly. You all know that I talk about exception to the rule energy all the time. I implore you, I encourage you to choose a different narrative for yourself. One of the narratives I choose is that like, as a woman, it's really easy for me to make more money. I can make more money no matter what the economy is doing, no matter what the society is doing. I get to choose those narratives for myself so that I can play this rigged fucking game that we're in. But when I talk about the rigged game, this is what I'm talking about. Historically, this is how it has been for women on the whole. The other thing here is like, we don't use girl math for anything besides spending. Like, we don't use girl math for investing. I don't hear people being like, oh, if I spend $20 on this index fund today that's basically like I've earned X amount in 20 years, Like we don't use that for invest. And that's not even girl math. That's just like actual math. It's like a compound interest calculator. But we only use girl math to justify spending decisions. So I want to note that, because if girl math was about more than just female justification of spending because we've largely been scrutinized and we don't feel worthy of the things that we actually want, it would bleed into more than just the spending, right? Girl math. So how do you actually then feel good about spending without needing girl math? Because when you feel like you need girl math, it's because you feel like you need to justify it, like you need to deserve it, like you need to earn it. And this is that, I also think now this goes beyond the gender binary, because we're also talking in a binary here too. Like the binary fucks everyone, right? Let's just get off the binary as a whole, right? But we're talking in a very binary terms at this time, because that's what I think the finance world, it feels so sectioned off into like, this is how men are with money and this is how women are with money. And that's just not true, right? I digress. But this now goes beyond just gender, where if you have any kind of narrative of not being like allowed to say your desires, not being allowed to want certain things, feeling guilty for what you want, feeling like you're not worthy of what you want, these sorts of narratives and mindset blocks are what then make you want to turn to girl math. Because if you can prove that it's fiscally a responsible decision, you don't have to then stand on fucking business and say, I want this just because I want it. We're going to get to that in a second. So now I actually want to talk about how do you feel good and not feel guilty when you spend money without having to use girl math, where you can just sit in your own desires and your own finances and make money decisions without having to justify and earn and deserve at every fucking point of the math equation. So this is the skill of spending. Okay, when we're talking about this, spending guilt-free, that's the skill of spending. I talked about this last episode as well. The skill of spending is the most important money skill for this reason. When you learn how to spend guilt-free, and when you learn how to spend in alignment with your desires, and you learn how to spend within your financial means, because there's no number or benchmark or pie chart that anyone could give you that could tell you exactly the right way to spend your money. If you're still looking at like a pie chart breakdown of like, how much should I be spending on rent and how much should I be spending on miscellaneous and what's my savings rate supposed to be, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything, okay? That was benchmarks for when everyone had like similar incomes and was all in like the same middle class territory, and like everyone was able to rent or buy a home for 30% of their fucking income. Like that's not real anymore. So there's no percentage that's going to make you feel safe. You're looking for a blueprint and a rule book that doesn't exist. Like you have to create the rule book for your finances based on your lifestyle, where you live, what you desire, and what your goals are. This is a huge part of what I do with my one-on-one clients inside of private coaching. We're creating that rule book for you of like, oh yeah, this does make sense for you to spend on your firm expenses. This does make sense for you to spend month to month on your like flex extraneous miscellaneous expenses. And then for you, what's your savings rate? That's your surplus. If you don't like your surplus, why? Oh, it's because you want this goal and this goal and this goal, and that requires this much money and this much money and this much money, which means you need to be earning this much more. We can't cut back your spending anymore because you live in New York and your cost of living is high, so we need to focus on earning. Do you see how that's so much different than like spend 30% of your income on rent and expenses, spend 50% on it? It's so different, okay? So the skill of spending is making sure that you understand not just the practical side of your financial landscape, and you're making tactical decisions based on numbers. Like we don't just want to completely ignore numbers. We love numbers. We just want to take in the whole picture of the numbers, right? Which is what girl math doesn't do. Girl math does timeshare math, where girl math cherry picks an equation that makes you feel good, that points you to buying the thing. Where the whole picture of your math is looking at, okay, so I have 3 months of bills sat in this bucket, and I have this upcoming vacation sat in this bucket, and my flex money is this much this month, and I'm about at the end of the month, and okay, I'll give you an example. This is me, literally this week. we're about to be at the end of the month, and I looked at my flex money. My flex money, I decide it's between like $750 and $850 each month, like depending on how busy of a month I think I'm going to have. So this past month, my flex money was $850. And I'm nearing the end of the month, and I looked at my credit card statement. This is like, I pulled up my credit card statement, and I saw that I have like $712 or something like that on my card, meaning I have about $100 left of flex money for the rest of this month. I've already done my grocery shopping for the month. And again, it's all on one account. I can look at my bank account and I see what I have left, pull up my credit card statement. I see what I've spent this month. That's it. It's that easy. I see I have $100 left, and I have been wanting a walking pad for under my desk. My partner got a standing desk, and I've been wanting one of those because I'm doing so much more like technical behind the scenes computer work in my business recently, like a lot more than I used to, with the new course, which I'm really excited about, and like more partnerships. I got some more behind the scenes stuff going on. So I'm back in my computer a lot more. So I want this walking pad. And so I was able to look at my account. I didn't even have to touch my savings, right? That didn't even come into the question. I was like, I'm done with my flex spending for the month because I've already done all my groceries. Like, I'm good. I have $100 left. I get to spend that account to zero, meaning the $100 that I'm about to spend on this walking pad fits into my flex money. I didn't have to girl math that shit at all. I just had to look at my bank account, and I had my bank account tell me that I could buy it this month without any mind drama. And also because it's been on my wish list, which I'm going to get to. There are 4 practical things that you need to do in order to not feel guilt when you spend money on shit you want and not have to use girl math. This is number 4. I put it on my wish list. So I'm going to come back to that when we go through the list of things. But it's that practical side, but then also there's an emotional side of really getting into what makes you feel guilty when you spend on things that you desire. What makes you feel like you can't afford things? Or like, what are you spending money on that you actually don't really want to be spending money on, but why do you feel like you have to keep spending money on them? Or why do you feel like you're always spending money on them? Okay. So let's get now to the 4 things that you need to do in order to not feel guilt when you spend money and not have to girl math. First thing, you need to recalibrate your mindset, okay? We're going to start with the mind. We're going to start with the emotions. You are allowed to buy things just because you want to. I'm going to say that again. You are allowed to buy things just because you want to, because you are a goddamn adult with adult money who has adult desires and adult feelings, and all these adult desires and feelings are really just our younger version of ourselves, desires and feelings masked in adult language, okay? Because I want to is a full sentence. Because I want to is a full sentence. Just like no is a full sentence, because I want to is a full sentence. So I need you to start calibrating that in your mindset. I don't give a fuck if the cost per wear is -7 cents. If you want that, you are allowed to then spend money on it to get it. You don't have to justify the cost per wear. The cost per wear could be $300, and you could still be allowed to buy it for yourself. You could still buy it for yourself without any guilt, because you know that you truly fully want it. Even though the cost per wear is $300, because this thing was $900 and you're only going to wear it once a year and you'll probably be done with it in 3 years, whatever it is. Okay? Number 2, financial clarity. You need to have the practical way to manage your money and understand your numbers so that you can pull up your bank account and within 40 seconds know whether you can afford something or not. Know whether you would like to put money towards that thing or not. Okay? You know you can afford it alongside your other money goals. You have a cash flow system, a bank account organization system in place where you can pull up your bank accounts and see the full picture of your financial reality. Again, not just cherry picking the timeshare math. You're looking at the full picture. So you can see not just do I want this and I can technically afford it with the money in my bank, but when I look at all of my other goals in my savings buckets, in the stuff I've been working on in my journal, the things, the future I want, when I've been working on my money flow, does this actually feel good to spend money on? Okay, so financial clarity. Then the third thing is internal prioritization, which is knowing what you actually want. Going back to that sentence, because I want to, hinges upon you actually knowing what you want. And allowing yourself to want what you want is one of the hardest things for us to do, especially as women, especially if you're a creative, and especially if you're a millennial. Fucking triple whammy if you're all three, okay? Present company included. But it's so hard for us to say what we actually want because sometimes it gets really scary because you're afraid you're not actually going to be able to have it. And then it's going to feel like lack if you say you want it and you can't have it. You're afraid of the gap between what you want and you actually having it. You don't want to become aware of like the shifts you're going to have to make, the decisions you're going to have to make, the moves you're going to have to make that a reality if you actually acknowledge that that's what you desire. And then 4, conditioning, right? What have you been told you're allowed to desire? What have you been told you're allowed to want? And vice versa. What have you been told you're not allowed to want? You're not allowed to desire, right? Like I was talking with someone. I was at a mastermind retreat, and I remember this so clearly. We were talking, and she, one of her business products is personal style, right? Helping you get dressed, helping you build a wardrobe. And she was talking about smart cookie syndrome, which is high achieving kids, right? The kids who were put in like the honors classes, the AP classes, the ones who were praised for their accolades, right? Were given, basically shoved, smart cookie syndrome, which means that they were told to not worry about their appearances because they were smart, because they had accolades, because they were doing well in school. Worrying about your appearance were for people who weren't smart. Right? And there's this smart cookie syndrome that then these are the group of women who don't really know their personal style, don't know how to dress, might not feel confident in their clothes and their body and their fashion because they just relied on their brain. But then like their brain is beautiful, their brain is brilliant. But why did those have to be juxtaposing each other? So I think about that a lot of like, what were you told you're not allowed to desire and want? Right? Maybe it was clothes. Maybe it was your outward appearance. Maybe it was putting money towards that. Who knows? So it's about that internal prioritization so that when you use that full sentence, because I want to, and you look at the stuff in your bank account, you pull up your money flow and you see that you can afford it and you can say yes to it because it feels good with the total picture of your money. And you know, because you've been sitting with what do I actually want, you've been journaling about it, and you're doing the list that I'm about to give you as number 4. Because you've done that, you can buy it without guilt. You can buy it feeling so good because you've done those 3 things. So now 4, this is what I call like the Band-Aid for the deeper root cause. So sometimes I just want to give you a tool that's extremely helpful in the immediate future while you work on the root cause things. Because some of this stuff, it might require a little bit of excavating, a little bit of journaling. Some stuff might be coming up for you right now as you're listening to this. So number 4 is the wish list. If you've been around a while, you've heard me talk about this before. This is a note in your notes app or in a physical piece of paper or in a Google Doc, Google Drive, whatever. It is a physical list of all of the things that you have had the thought or the feeling, I want that. Can I have that? Give me that. So whether it's you're scrolling on Instagram and you see an ad for something, you're, walking around downtown and you see something that you really like, or, you have things in your Amazon cart that you want to buy, right? There's so many things that you could want at a given time, big things, small things, etc. You are compiling a list of them on this note in your notes app. And you are going to let them sit on that note for at least 2 weeks, ideally 1 month. Okay? So what happens? You scrolling on Instagram, you see an ad for a fanny pack that you really want. It's so cute. It's so fun. You're going to look so chic in that for summer. You see it and you're about to buy it, but then you're like, wait, Brooke told me about the wish list. I got to put it on the wish list. So you're going to copy the link. You're going to put it in that note, right? Right on your phone. You're just going to pull up the notes app, paste it there. And you got this whole list now. Right, you could put the date of when you put it on there so you can see when 2 weeks has passed. And you have to let it sit for 2 weeks. You can buy it after 2 weeks, but you have to let it sit for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, you get to come back to that. And what happened now is you pulled yourself out of the urgency of that moment, the feelings of that moment. You've put yourself in a totally new situation 2 weeks later in consciousness. And you get to decide, do I actually really love that thing or not? right? Or was that really about something else? Is that desire still there, or was it just like a passing feeling? Was it a trend? I've talked about this on my podcast episode with Harriet Hatfield. She did her no buy 365-day challenge, and we recorded this podcast right at the end of that challenge. And she was talking about how she watched things that she wanted for her closet, clothes. She had the strong desire, but then because she was in this no buy challenge, she just watched that desire fade. Maybe it would come back, but then it would fade again. And so she watched then the ebbs and flows of her own desires, which made them feel less urgent. This is what the wish list is helping you to do. And then if you do still want the thing after 2 weeks, you know it's actually about the thing. You know you actually want it, right? You know it's an actual true desire. So like I said with the walking pad, that's what I did with this walking pad. I've actually had the thought about wanting a walking pad for a few months now. I mean, last year sort of, but the real desire kicked in like January of this year. And so now I know that that's been on my list for a long time now, multiple weeks, and I still desire it. And then I saw the money in my bank account that made it a real easy no-brainer, and I was able to buy it right away. No guilt, excitement, because I want it. Like, I didn't even have to justify how much I was going to use it. I didn't have to justify why it would be good for my business. I didn't have to justify that it was a tax deduction, so I'm basically getting it for free, which is not true. That's not how tax deductions work, just for anyone who thinks that out there. Because when you take a tax deduction, you're still paying for the thing. You just are lowering your tax liability. I digress. I didn't have to do any of that. I just got to say because I want it, because my body's been really craving movement during the day, and that would feel really fun for me. And look, I have the $100 in my bank account, okay? That's what happens when you have the money flow set up, when you understand your money, when you have recalibrated your mindset to know that you are allowed to want what you want, when you've gotten clear on what your actual desires are, what your actual wants are, and you've implemented the wish list to know for sure with evidence that you do actually want that thing, okay? This will give you actual financial autonomy and control. Not just tricking your brain into feeling it, because that's what girl math is doing. Girl math is tricking your brain into thinking you are in control of your money, to tricking your brain into thinking this is financial responsibility, when you're actually leapfrogging the stuff that would actually make you feel financially responsible, which is managing your money well, managing it simply, and getting clear on your desires. Because I want you to have financial autonomy. I want you to be able to say, because I want this. And then if anyone comes at you about an opinion of like, oh, that's so expensive, or how do you do that, or what do you mean, da-da-da, you feel like, I'm good. Like, you have so much confidence and autonomy, not just because you believe it in your brain, or because you've tricked yourself into thinking it because of girl math, but because you actually have the evidence in your bank accounts of like, no, this is actually a very responsible financial move, because I have plenty of money to do it, because I know it fits into my financial ecosystem. You have the facts to back up the mindset. That's why we always do the tactical and the emotional, the practical and the mindset, always together, okay? I want you to have financial autonomy, and learning the skill of spending, implementing these 4 things is actually what's going to give you that, so that you can spend guilt-free without resorting to girl math. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @notstarvingartists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.